All right, we are back with a new interview with Naoki Hamaguchi, where he talks about sales increases for Remake and Rebirth, fan response to Revelation so far, and he talks about the current status of a physical release for Revelation. And it's sounding like a physical disc might be up in the air at this point in time. So that's what we will discuss in today's video. If any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button. And if you're new here and you'd like to stick around, you can subscribe. It is always appreciated. Alright, today's interview with Hamaguchi is coming to us from Automaton Media via Automaton West. And they start off first by asking Hamaguchi, how has fan response been since you guys revealed Revelation all the way back in Summer Game Fest of 2026? It's been 2 months, which, time is weird right now, but it's been 2 months, which is kind of weird to think about it. But Hamaguchi says, the response has been extremely positive. After the event, I probably did interviews with more than 30 media outlets across North America and Europe, as well as interviews with Chinese media. I think I spent about a week doing interviews nonstop. Even with the previous game, I don't think we received this much attention or this many requests for interviews. So it really made me feel that a huge number of people are paying attention to this last chapter of the trilogy. I'm incredibly grateful. And maybe it's anecdotal, maybe it's just the places I follow online, but it definitely seems like Revelation got a huge ovation, not just at the Game Awards itself, but just seeing people talk about it online. And it seems like there are way more people who are ready to finally join this remake adventure. And I've had countless comments on my channel over the years from people saying this looks cool, but I'm going to wait until they announce part 3 before I fully jump on board, because there are a lot of people who want to experience Remake, Rebirth, and now Revelation all in one go, and now they're going to be able to do that, which is pretty cool. So with this being the finale of a really big long-running trilogy, you can bet your butt that there's going to be way more people who are like, okay, I think now is finally the time to check out what all the fuss is about and see if it's something that they might enjoy, which leads to talk about sales, which Hamaguchi will talk about later in this interview. Up next, they ask Hamaguchi, were there any specific fan reactions to the announcement of Revelation that really left an impression on him? He would say, what pleased me the most was that the exact things we were aiming to convey came across to fans very directly. While the characters are obviously important, our goal with Revelation's reveal was to create a trailer that would draw attention to the gameplay experience. Whether it's flying freely around the world aboard the Highwind, battling the weapons, or the Fits system and the way it adds depth to combat. I felt like people really noticed those aspects of the game. There was also a lot of focus on how much player agency the gameplay offers, so I felt that our message landed. At the same time, people also talked about the characters' costumes and animations, so I think our trailer managed to accomplish everything we were going for. I was a little surprised, though happy, with the amount of attention Vincent's crossed belts received. I've talked about this before, I'm going to say it again, but I think that the reveal trailer for Revelation, as well as the gameplay overview that they did at Summer Game Fest, was very well done, and it was very smart. Again, I compare it to the marketing for Rebirth, which I describe it as being very sleepy, kind of obtuse. You had a lot of trailers that were kind of slow-paced at times, that really kind of focused on more of the obscure story stuff. They would often take random lines of dialogue from characters that were out of context and place them in certain parts of the trailer, and it just felt kind of weird. The trailer, structure and marketing for Rebirth was very odd. But looking at how they're handling Revelation, it is so much better. Those trailers that they put out, the first reveal one hits the ground running. It tells you everything you need to know about story, characters, gameplay. It actually gets you excited, and it feels like a proper trailer, very much like the marketing was for 7 Remake. And the gameplay overview as well, just really showcasing people like, okay, this is the final game in the series. You haven't played yet. This is what we have to offer in terms of gameplay. And that's a really, really big important thing. Gameplay is something you gotta sell these days. People are spending their hard-earned money to buy a game. When you buy something, you want to make sure that what you're spending is, quality, and you're gonna get your money's worth. So again, I thought those were very well done, and it just makes me curious and excited to see how the other trailers play out and if they're kind of structured the same way and really just kind of focus on all of the important points as opposed to being, kind of more obtuse and, focusing on the characters standing around and talking. Up next, they ask Hamaguchi about the series being so popular and that it tends to drum up a lot of discussion, whether it's about the gameplay stuff like mini games, the story, shipping, which is a very scary word for Elmo. How does he personally feel about that? He says, "I'm grateful for it. Games are a medium, a community, and a culture. While a culture has certain unchanging aspects, I believe it only truly shapes into a culture when people discuss it from many different perspectives. If everyone looked at something in exactly the same way, I think it might not leave a lasting impression and could fade into obscurity over time. The very fact that the community is so active, that conversations happen and debates keep erupting, is a kind of entertainment in and of itself. When people discuss and get heated about the minigames, the story, or the relationships between characters in 7, I think that only happens because they see value in those elements. I'm proud that this series has enough depth and capacity to inspire those kinds of discussions." That's basically what it all comes down to. It all boils down to passion. We all love these characters and the stories. They've, touched us in different ways and inspired our lives, maybe altered the course of many people's lives. So a lot of these discussions, whether they're in favor of the remake series or the original game or against it, it all does stem from passion. People love these things. They have a certain view of it. They have certain memories of it. They want to see it done the way, that they would like to see it done. So again, I've said over the years, I can understand if someone does not like the remake series. I personally really, really love what they're doing and can't wait to see what happens in Revelation with all the crazy story stuff. And being able to have healthy discussions, healthy debates, being able to express your criticism in a way that is constructive is the whole point, right? That helps people get better. It helps the developers learn. It also helps people within the fan base understand each other much more, understanding the gripes someone might have or why they love something. I think things do tend to go a little too far, specifically with online culture. And I've talked about this before, but the people who get really, really aggressive and toxic to the point where they are harassing and attacking the developers, the actors involved in portraying the characters, other fans, that's when it crosses a line of like, you might want to put the phone down or step away from the computer and actually go outside and touch grass. And I don't say that in a condescending way. I mean, like, actually go outside, breathe some fresh air, step away from the thing that might be making you really aggressive. That's the section of the community that I don't vibe with at all. You got to be respectful, constructive. Sending those types of threats out is just insane to me. And you also shouldn't dwell on something you don't like. Again, if you don't like the remake series, that's totally fine. But I noticed that there are people out there that, for whatever reason, keep focusing on it and devoting so much time and energy to something that you don't like or is making you upset, or watching content creators that are purposely like making you angry and upset. That's not good, man. You got to step away from that stuff, and that time could be spent finding something or discovering something rather that you might actually really, really love and vibe with, and you could put that energy towards that and sharing that with other people. So again, a lot of it comes from a place of passion, which I understand. There are just certain lines that shouldn't be crossed. But even then, Final Fantasy VII as a whole is just so popular and beloved that almost 30 years later, people are still talking about it online, in person, on forums, having discussions, debates about everything. So that's pretty rare when you really think about it. Up next, they mentioned to Hamaguchi that ever since the reveal of Revelation, they've seen sales increases for things like Remake and Rebirth, specifically on Steam, although that does happen elsewhere as well, like Switch 2, and I don't know about Xbox, but I know Switch 2 is doing very well when it comes to Rebirth in particular and that twin pack. But, what are Hamaguchi's thoughts? He says, "They are doing extremely well. Even before Summer Game Fest 2026, both 7 Remake and Rebirth had been selling steadily. Back when Rebirth was announced, every time it became a hot topic, sales of Remake would rise. Similarly, I'm sure every time Revelation attracts attention, more people will become interested in Rebirth. Following SGF 2026, we saw an enormous response in terms of sales. I can't share specific figures, but sales are several times better than we had expected. I think fans and dedicated fan communities are very interested in how many copies the games have sold, but I can say they're performing even better than most people probably imagine. That means more and more people are playing the previous entries, which gives me great confidence as we prepare to release 7 Revelation to the world. I know there are requests for us to disclose the numbers, but that's something that falls under our investor relations policies, so I hope people understand. So that ties all the way back to like the first topic of this video of people's reactions to Revelations. People finally going, okay, the finale is here, I'm ready to jump on board, and you see sales increases for Remake and Rebirth, specifically that twin pack. And I mentioned this in one of the recent videos I did looking at Final Fantasy Resonance, but we had some info from Genki that showed that I believe it was Rebirth, it might have been the twin pack, went from like the 35th best-selling game of June to 12th in 1 month with the release of Rebirth going multi-platform. So clearly a lot of people are interested with them going multi-platform as well. You open up a much bigger audience that maybe was interested in your game and wanted to play it but didn't have the means to because it was locked to Sony consoles for almost 10 years at this point. So the sales are definitely increasing, and it seems like whatever sales they didn't make with Rebirth specifically on PS5 when it first released, they are more than making up for with it being multi-platform. So again, we don't have exact numbers, but there are, places like Circana that do track game sales via like dollar amounts, and they're able to have a pretty accurate representation of how well something is performing, even if they don't have the exact number of copies sold. And whether or not that actually gets disclosed, that's really up to Square Enix. They haven't been disclosing sales numbers recently for some of their bigger games. So with Hamaguchi being someone who is an executive now at Square Enix, he got promoted, I believe, around the time of Rebirth. He has the insight, but that's not something that they can publicly disclose. But it sounds like the sales are a lot healthier now, which again, like that was one of the biggest things holding Remake and Rebirth back, was the fact that it was locked to PlayStation for so long. So now you have way more people that can enjoy these games. The finale's coming up, so a lot of people are really curious about what they can expect from Remake, Rebirth, and eventually Revelation. So this is pretty cool. Up next, we get to the talk of physical media going away. Now, Hamaguchi did talk about this very briefly in a Games Radar Plus interview. So some of his thoughts here are the same. He is in full support of physical media. He loves being able to interact with fans that can bring media to him that he can sign and look at and actually hold. He thinks that physical copies will always be around in some capacity, but a lot of that kind of requires them to play with these companies like Sony and Nintendo and some of their restrictions around physical media, i.e. Nintendo requiring game key cards for some games that might be too big, and i.e. Sony wanting to ditch physical media in favor of digital sales or a code in the box. And when he talked about that in the Games Radar Plus interview, he talked about Revelation's physical release, and it seemed very nebulous. I posed the idea like, okay, it seems like that's kind of up in the air right now. I didn't want to go too far with that discussion because I don't want to take Hamaguchi's words and twist them. And I saw a number of outlets, running with the titles of Revelation might not have a disc. And I wanted to wait until he followed up more on this. And based on his answer here, it sounds like Revelation having a physical disc is still up in the air right now. So he goes on to say, as for Revelation, I'm aware that following SIE's announcement, some fans have become concerned that the game might end up being a digital-only release. While this is all I'm able to share at this time, given the current stage of Revelation's development, a complete change in direction would be difficult for us. Therefore, we are actively exploring the possibility of releasing a physical retail version. That said, every platform has its own regulations, whether that's support for game keycards or media capacity limitations. Right now, we're discussing internally how to best preserve the game's quality while also meeting fans' expectations. Personally, I'd like to continue working toward making a physical edition happen. So that first line from him, talking about the stage of development that they're currently in, changing direction would be difficult, that can kind of be taken two ways, I feel. That could be taken as, oh, they were moving towards just doing a digital release or a code in the box. Or that could be taken as they've done Remake and Rebirth on disc. They're actively working to put Revelation on a disc as well. So that can be read both ways. I would not be shocked if Square Enix, after hearing the news from SIE and seeing what companies like Rockstar are doing, wouldn't mind doing the physical code in the box sooner rather than later. It would not shock me. I hope that's not the route that they go down though. Remake and Rebirth were on disc. It would be really nice for the game's finale to also have a physical disc release. And with him saying at the end of that quote that he would like to continue working towards making a physical edition happen, sounds like a physical edition is not guaranteed as of right now. That would be a decision they'd have to probably make sooner rather than later. They are still currently in the polishing phases of Revelation. It has a spring 2027 release date, but no firm date. The game has to go gold, and then should they print discs, that has to happen like a month or so in advance. So everything is just turned upside down right now in the gaming industry with this huge announcement. So again, I wouldn't be shocked if the CEOs of Square Enix want to move in that direction sooner rather than later. But with Hamaguchi and the team valuing physical media while also working around the constraints of each individual company like a Nintendo or a Sony, he's fighting really hard, it sounds like, to ensure that this game gets a physical release. So as of right now, yeah, everything is just kind of very nebulous, very up in the air. We probably won't know until the game actually gets a release date, maybe. So I don't expect that to happen at Tokyo Game Show, maybe at the Game Awards, because then we'll be much closer to that spring 2027 date, and they might be ready to actually give a firm release date. And that trailer with the firm release date will probably tell us at the end, available on 2 discs, available on 3 discs, or available with a code in the box. So that's a bummer. I really hope it does get that physical release. And then it just kind of makes me question future releases of, an inevitable trilogy pack. Would that be a situation where Remake and Rebirth have discs and Revelation's a code, or would they just say, screw it, we're doing codes for all 3? Nobody really knows for sure, but I'm glad that he clarified that a little bit more. Obviously, there's a lot that he can't say just yet, but it sounds like he's fighting pretty hard to make sure that this game does get a disc and a proper physical release, so I appreciate that very greatly. And with that, we reach the end of the article and the video. Now, Hamaguchi did share this interview on Twitter, and he did mention that it was going to be split into 2 different parts. Now, normally Automaton publishes the second half of their interviews relatively quick after they publish the first part. And I've been checking the website off and on all day. I haven't seen the second half go up yet. So I don't know if maybe there was like a mistranslation thing and they only did 1 part, or the second part's just going to be delayed until over the weekend or on a Monday. I'm currently recording this on a Friday, so I might put up this video today. If not, it might go up on a Monday. You'll see it when you see it. But if a second article does come out and if there's anything interesting there to discuss, I'll go ahead and make a separate video and get that up as soon as possible. Just want to give you guys a heads up in case that second article hits and this video is already out. My ADD is kicking my butt right now. But with that being said, let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below on what we discussed in today's video. And to leave you guys with a fun question, what is the summon that you are most looking forward to seeing in Revelation, whether it's a returning summon or a brand new one? I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.